Chapter 3 The Journey to Platform 9 3/4. Harry's last month with the Dursleys wasn't fun. True Dudley was now scared of Harry. He wouldn't stay in the same room, while Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon didn't shut Harry in his cupboard from orders him to do anything or shout at him. In fact, they didn't speak to him at all. Half terrified, half furious, they acted as though any chair with Harry in it were empty. Although it was improvement in many ways, it did become a bit depressing after a while. Harry kept to his room with his new owl for company. He had decided to call her Hedwig, a name he had found in a history of magic. His school books were very interesting. He lay on his bed, reading late into the night, Hedwig swooping in and out of the open window, and she pleased. It was lucky that Aunt Petunia didn't come into the vacuum anymore, because Hedwig kept bringing back dead mice every night before he went to sleep. Harry ticked off another day on the piece of paper he had pinned to the wall, counting down to September the 1st. On the last day of August, he had thought he better speak to his aunt and uncle about getting to King's Cross Station the next day, so he went down to the living room where they were watching a quiz show on television. He cleared his throat to let them know he was there, and Dudley screamed and ran from the room. Uncle Vernon. Uncle Vernon got into the show he was listening to. I need to get to Green Cross tomorrow to go to Hogwarts. Uncle Vernon grunted again. Would it be all right if you gave me a lift? Grunt Harry supposed that meant yes. Thank you. He was about to go upstairs when Uncle Vernon actually spoke. Funny way to get a wizard school, the train, magic carpets, all got punctures half the key. Harry didn't say anything. Where's the school anyway? I don't know, said Harry, realizing this for the first time. He pulled the ticket Hagrid had given him out of his pocket. I just take the train from platform 9 3/4 at 11 o'clock, he read. His aunt and uncle started on platform. What? 9 3/4. Don't talk rubbish, said Uncle Vernon. There is no platform 9 3/4. It's on my ticket, barking, said Uncle Vernon. Howling mad, the lot of them. You see, you'll just wait. All right, we'll take you to King's Cross. We're going up to London tomorrow anyway, or I wouldn't bother. Why are you going to London? Harry asked. Trying to keep things friendly? Taking Dudley to the hospital, growled Uncle Vernon. Got to get that ruddy tail removed before he goes to Smeltings. Harry woke up 5 o'clock the next morning, was too excited and nervous to go back to sleep. He got up and pulled on his jeans because he didn't want to walk into the station in his wizard's robes. He had changed on the train. He checked his Hogwarts list yet and again to make sure he had everything he needed, said that Hedwig was shut safely in her cage, and then paced the room waiting for the Dursleys to get up. 2 hours later, Harry's huge, heavy trunk had been loaded into the Dursleys' car. Aunt Petunia had talked Dudley into sitting next to Harry, and they had set off. They reached King's Cross at 10:30. Uncle Vernon dumped Harry's trunk onto a cart and wheeled into the station for him. Harry thought this was strangely kind until Uncle Vernon stopped dead facing the platforms with a nasty grin on his face. Well, there you are, boy, platform 9310. Your platform should be somewhere in the middle, but they don't seem to have built it yet, do they? He was quite, of course. There was a big plastic number, 9 over on one platform, and a big plastic number 10 over the one next to it, and in the middle, nothing at all. Have a good term, said Uncle Vernon with an even nastier smile. He left without another word. Harry turned and saw the Dursleys drive away. All three of them were laughing. Harry's mouth went rather dry. What on earth was he going to do? He was starting to attract a lot of funny bugs because of Hedwig. He'd had to ask someone. He stopped a passing guard but didn't dare mention platform 9 3/4. The guard had never heard of Hogwarts, and when Harry couldn't even tell him what part of the country it was in, he started to get annoyed, as though Harry was being stupid on purpose. Getting desperate, Harry asked for the train that left at 11 o'clock, but the guard said there wasn't one. In the end, the guard strode away, muttering about time wasters. Harry was now trying hard not to panic. According to the large clock over the arrivals aboard, he had 10 minutes left to go on the train to Hogwarts. He had no idea how to do it. He was stranded in the middle of a station with a trunk. He could hardly fit a pocket full of wizard money and a large owl. Hagrid must have gotten to tell him something you had to do, like tapping the third brick on the left to get into Diagon Alley. He wondered if he should get out of his wand and starting tapping the ticket inspector's hand between platforms 9 and 10. At that moment, a group of people passed just behind him, and he caught a few words of what they were saying, packed with muggles, of course. Harry swung around. The speaker was a plump woman who was talking to four boys, all with flaming red hair. Each of them was pushing a trunk like Harry's in front of him, and they had an owl. Heart hammering, Harry pushed his cart after them. They stopped, and so did he, just near enough to hear what they were saying. "Now, what's the platform number?" said the boy's mother. 9 3/4, piped a small girl, also red-headed, who was holding her mom. "Mama, can't I go?" "You're not old enough, Ginny. Now be quiet. All right, Percy, you go first." What looked like the oldest boy marched toward the platforms 9 and 10. Harry watched, careful not to blink in case he missed it, but just as the boy reached the dividing barrier between the two platforms, a large crowd of tourists came swarming in front of him. By the time the last backpack had cleared away, the boy had vanished. "Fred, you next," the plump woman said. "No, I'm Fred." "No, I'm not Fred. I'm George," said the boy. "Honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother. Can't you tell I'm George?" "I'm sorry, George." "I'm only joking. I am Fred," said the boy, and off he went. His twin called after him to hurry up, and he must have done so, because a second later he had gone. But how had he done it? Now the third brother was walking briskly toward the barrier. He was almost there, and then quiet. Suddenly, he wasn't anywhere. There was nothing else for it. "Excuse me," said Harry to the plump woman. "Hello, dear," she said. "First time at Hogwarts?" Ron's new too. She pointed at the last youngest son of her sons. He was tall, thin, and gangling, with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. "Yes," said Harry. The thing is, I don't know how to get onto the platform," she said kindly, and Harry nodded. "Not to worry, dear," she said. "All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop, and don't be scared that you'll crash right into it. And that's very important. Best to do it a bit of a run if you're nervous. Go now before Ron." Okay," said Harry. He pushed his trolley around and stared at the barrier. It looked very solid. He started to walk toward it. Big people jostled him on their way to platforms 9 and 10. Harry walked more quickly. He was going to smash it right into the barrier, and then he'd be in trouble. Leaning forward on his cart, he broke into a very heavy run. The barrier was coming nearer and nearer. He wouldn't be able to stop. The car was out of control. He was a foot away. He closed his eyes, ready for the crash. It didn't come. He kept on running. He opened his eyes. A scarlet steam engine was waiting next to a platform packed with people. A sign overhead said Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Harry looked behind him and saw a wrought iron archway where the barrier had been, with the words platform 9 3/4 on it. He had done it. Smoke from the engine drifted over the heads of the chattering crowd, while cats over of every color wound here and there between their legs. Owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over their babble and the scrapping of heavy trunks. Their first few carriages were already packed with students, some hanging out of the window to talk to their families, some fighting over seats. Harry pushed his cart up down the platform in search of an empty seat. He passed a round-faced boy who was saying, "In Gran, I lost my toad again." "Oh," Neville heard the old woman sigh. "Oh," a boy with the dreadlocks surrounded by a small crowd. "Give us a look. Lee, go on." The boy lifted the lid of a box in his arms, and the people around him shrieked and yelled as something inside poked out a long, hairy leg. Harry pressed on through the crowd until he found an empty compartment near the end of the train. He put Hedwig inside first, and then started to shove and heave his trunk down toward the train door. He tried to lift it up the steps, but could hardly raise one end, and twice he dropped it painfully on his foot. Want a hand? It was one of the red-haired twins he'd followed through the barrier. "Yes, please," Harry panted. "Oi, Fred, come here and help." With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was at last tucked away in a corner of the compartment. "Thanks," said Harry, pushing his sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" said one of the twins, suddenly pointing at Harry's lightning scar. "Blimey," said the other twin. "Are you?" "He is," said the first twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry. What?" said Harry. "Harry Potter," chortled the twins. "Oh, him," said Harry. "I mean, yes, I am." The two boys got at him, and Harry felt himself turning red. Then, to his relief, and a voice came floating in through the train's open door. "Fred, George, are you there?" "Coming, Mom." With a last look at Harry, the twins hopped off the train. Harry was sat down next to the middle window where, half hidden, he could watch the red-haired family on the platform and hear what they were saying. Their mother had just taken out of their handkerchief. "Ron, you've got something on your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk out of the way, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mom, off," he wriggled free. "Ah, has Uncle Ronnie got some fink on his nose?" said one of the twins. "Shut up," said Ron. "Where's Percy?" said the mother. "He's coming now." The oldest boy came striding into sight. He had already changed into his billowing black Hogwarts robes, and Harry noticed a shiny red and gold badge on his chest with the letter P on it. "Can't stay long, Mother," he said. "I'm in front of the prefects. Have you got 2 compartments to themselves?" "Oh, are you a perfect Percy?" said one of the twins with an air of great surprise. "You should have something. We had no idea." "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it," said the other twin. "Once or twice a minute all summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy the prefect. "How come Percy gets new robes anyway?" said one of the twins. "Because he's a prefect," said the mother fondly. "All right there, dear. Well, have a good turn. Send me an owl when you get there." She kissed Percy on the cheek, and he left them. She turned to the twins. "Now you two, this year, you behave yourselves. If I get one more owl, tell me you've blown a toilet or blown up a toilet. When never blown up a toilet. Great idea, though. Thanks, Mom. It's not funny, and look after Ron. Don't worry, Uncle Ronkins is safe with us. Shut up, said Ron again. He was almost as tall as the twins already, and his nose was still pink where his mother and rubbed it. Hey, Mom, guess what? Guess who we just met on the train? Harry leaned back quickly so they couldn't see him looking. You know, said black haired boy who was never near us in the station. Know who he is? Who? Harry Potter. Harry heard the little girl's voice. Oh, Mom, can I go on the train and see him, Mom? Oh, please. You've already seen him, Ginny, and the poor boy isn't something you Google at in a zoo. Is he really, Fred? How do you know? Asked him. Saw his scar. It's really there like lightning. Poor dear, no one wondered he was alone. I wondered he was never so polite. He asked how to get onto the platform. Never mind that. Do you think he remembers that you know who looks like? The mother suddenly became very stern. I forbid you to ask him, Fred. No one. No, don't you dare. As he needs reminding of of that on his first day at school. All right, keep your hair on, whistle. Hurry up, their mother said, and three boys clambered onto the train. They leaned out of the window for her to kiss them goodbye, and their younger sister began to cry. Don't, Jenny. We'll send you loads of owls. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat. George, only joking, Mom. The train began to move. Harry saw the boys' mother waving, and their sister was half laughing, half crying, running to keep up the train until it gathered to much speed. Then she fell back and waved. Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear as the train rounded the corner. Fast flashed past the window. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what he was going to do, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind. The door compartment slid open, and the youngest, reddest-haired boy came in. Anyone sitting here? He asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. Everywhere else is full. Harry shook his head, and the boys sat down. He glanced at Harry and then looked quickly out of the window, pretending he hadn't looked. Harry saw he still had a black mark on his nose. Hey, Ron. The twists were black. Listen, we're going to the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there. Right, mumbled Ron. Harry said the other twin. Did he introduce ourselves? Fred and George Weasley. And this is Ron, our brother. See you later then. Bye, said Harry and Ron. The twins slid the compartment doors shut behind them. Are you really Harry Potter? Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. Oh, well, I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes, said Ron. And have you really got, he pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar. Ron stared. So that's where you know who? Said, yes, said Harry, but I can't remember nothing, said Ron eagerly. Well, I remember a lot of green lights, but nothing else. Wow, said Ron. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments, then as though he had suddenly realized that what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. All your family wizards, asked Harry, who found Ron just as interesting as Ron found him. Yes, I think so, said Ron. I think Mom's got a second cousin who was an accountant, but we can never talk about him. So, you know loads of magic already. The Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizarding families the pale boy in Diagon Alley had talked about. I heard you went to live with Muggles, said Ron. What are they like? Horrible? Well, not all of them. My aunt and uncle and cousin all though wish I'd have 3 wizards. 5, said Ron. For some reason, he was looking gloomy. I'm the 6th in our family to go to Hogwarts. You could say I've got a lot to live up to. Bill and Charlie have already left. Bill was head boy and Charlie was captain of Quidditch. Now Percy's a prefect. Fred and George George Mercy a lot, but they still get really good marks, and everyone thinks they're funny. Everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do, it's no big deal because they did it first. Never get anything new either with five brothers. I've got Bill's old robes, Charlie's old wand, and Percy's old rat. Ron reached inside his jacket and pulled out a fat gray rat that was asleep. His name is Scabbers, and he's useless. He hardly ever wakes up. Percy got an owl from my dad for being made a prefect, but they couldn't F. I mean, I got Scabbers instead. Ron's ears went pink. He seemed to think he said too much because he went back to staring out of the window. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he never had any money in his life until a month ago, and he told Ron so, all about having to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seemed to cheer up Ron, and until Hagrid told one, I didn't know anything about being a wizard but my parents were Voldemort. Ron gasped. What? Said Harry. You said you know whose name, said Ron, sounding both shocked and said, impressed. I'd have thought you of all people. I'm not trying to be brave or anything, said the knave, said Harry. I just never knew you shouldn't see what I mean. I've got loads to learn. I bet he did voicing for the first time something that had been worrying him a lot lately. Bet I'm the worst in the class. You won't be. There are loads of people who come from Muggle families, and they learn quickly enough. While they had been talking, the train had carried them out of London. Now they were speeding past fields full of cows and sheep. They were quiet for a time, watching the fields and lanes flick past. Around 12, there was a great clattering outside in the corridor, and smiling, dimpled woman slipped back their door and said, anything off the cards, dears. Who hadn't had any breakfast leapt to his feet, but Ron's ears went pink again, and he muttered that he'd brought sandwiches when Harry went out into the corridor. He had never had any money for candy with the Dursleys, and now that he had pockets rattling with gold and silver, he was ready to buy as many Mars bars as he could carry, but the woman didn't have any Mars bars. So what did he have? Were Bertie Bott's, were every flavor beans, Drubel's, best blowing gum, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, licorice wands, and a number of strange things Harry had never seen in his life. Nothing to miss anything. He got some of everything and paid the woman 11 sickles and 7 bros nuts. Ron started as Harry bought it all back into the compartment and tipped into another empty seat. Hungry, are you? Starving, said Harry. Take a large bite of a pumpkin pasty. Ron had taken out a lumpy package and unwrapped it. There were 4 sandwiches inside. Where he pulled out one of them and said, she always forgets I don't like corned beef. Swap you for one of these, said Harry, holding up a pasty. Go on, you don't want this. It's all dry, said Ron. So he hasn't got much time. He had quickly, with 5 of us. Go on, have a pasty, said Harry, who had never had anything to share before, or indeed anyone to share it with. It was a nice feeling sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all Harry pasties, cakes, and candies. The sandwiches lay forgotten. What are these, Harry asked Ron, holding up a pack of chocolate frogs. They are not really frogs, are they? He was starting to feel nothing would surprise. No, said Ron, but see what the card is. I'm missing Agrippa. What? Oh, of course, you wouldn't know. Chocolate Fox cards. Inside them, you know what to collect famous witches and wizards. I've got about 500, but I haven't got Agrippa or Plum to me. Harry unwrapped his chocolate fog and picked it up the card. It showed a man's face. He wore half moon glasses, a long crooked nose, and flowing silver hair, beard, and mustache. Underneath the picture was the name Albus Dumbledore. So this is Dumbledore, said Harry. Don't tell me you never heard of Dumbledore, said Ron. Can't I have a frog? I might get Agrippa. Thanks. Have you turned over his card and read Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts, considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times. Dumbledore, impartially famous for this defeat of the Dark Wizards Grindelwald in 1945 for the discovery of the 12 use of dragon's blood and his work alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and temping, bowling, and Harry turned the card back over and saw to astonishment that Dumbledore's face had disappeared. He's gone. Well, they can't expect to hang around all day, said Ron. Well, he'll be back. No, I've got Morgana, and I've got about 6 of her. Do you want it? You can start collecting. Ron's eyes stared to the pile of chocolate frogs that wanted to be unwrapped. Help yourself, said Harry, but you know the muggle world. People just say and put in photos. Do they? What? They don't move at all. Ron sounded amazed. Weird, said Harry, as Dumbledore sidled back into the picture on his card and gave him a small smile. Ron was more interested in eating the frogs and then looking at the famous witches and wizard cards, but Harry couldn't keep his eyes off of them. So he had not only Dumbledore and Morgana, but Hengist of Woodcraft, Alberic, Grunion, Sears, Paracelsus, and Merlin's. He finally tore his eyes away from the Judith Clinoda, who was scratching her nose to an open bag of Bertie Bott's every flavored beans. You want to be careful with those, said Ron, warned Harry. When they say every flavor, they mean every flavor. You know, you get all the ordinary ones like chocolate and permanent marmalade. But then you get spinach and liver trip. George reckons he had a booger flavored one once. Ron picked up a green bean, looked at it carefully, and bit into a corner. Blah, sea sprouts. They had a good time eating the every flavored beans. Harry got toast, coconut, baked bean, strawberry, curry, grass, coffee, sardine, and was even brave enough to nibble the end of a funny gray one. Ron wouldn't touch, which turned out to be pepper. The countryside, with now flying past the window, was becoming wilder. The neat fields had gone. Now there were woods, twisting rivers, and dark green hills. There was a knock on the door of their compartment, and round-faced boy Harry passed on the platform, and 3 quarters came in. He looked tearful. Sorry, he said, but have you seen a toad at all? When they looked their heads, he tailed. I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me. He'll turn up, said Harry. Yes, said the boy miserably. Well, if you see him, he left. Don't know why he's so bothered, said Ron. If I'd brought a toad, I'd lose it quick as I could. Mind, I bought scabbers, so I can't talk. The rat was still snoozing on Ron's lap. He might have died, and you wouldn't know the difference, said Ron in disgust. I tried to turn him yellow yesterday to make him more interesting, but the spells didn't work. I'll show you. Look. He rummaged around it in his trunk and pulled out of a very bladdered-looking wand. It was chipped in places and something white. It was gleaming at the end. Unicorn's hair, nearly picking out. Anyway, he had just raised his wand with the when the compartment door slid open again. The toeless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. He was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. He had a bossy sort of voice, um, lots of bushy brown hair, rather large front teeth. We've already told him we haven't seen it, said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand and said, Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see then. She sat down. Ron looked at, taken aback. All right, he cleared his throat. Sunshine daisies, bottom mellow. Turn the stupid fat rat yellow. He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers stayed away, as fast asleep. Are you sure that's a real spell? Said the girl. Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried simple spells myself, just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nothing in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is. I've learned all of our course by hearts. Of course, I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger. Emma Watson. By the way, who are you? She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron, was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't learned all the course by a heart either. I'm Ron Weasley, Ron muttered. Harry Potter, said Harry. Are you really? Said Hermione. I know all about you, of course. I've got a few extra books for background reading. You're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the Dark Lord of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Am I? Said Harry, feeling dizzy. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd found out everything I could if it was me, said Harry. Do you either of one of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around and I hope I'm in Gryffindor's. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, we go and look for Neville's toad. You two had better change. You know I'll expect we'll be there soon. And she left, taking the toadless boy with her. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, said Ron. He threw his wand back to the trunk. Stupid spell George gave it to me, but he never knew it was a dud. What house are your brothers in? Asked Harry. Gryffindor, said Ron. Gloom, she said, to be settling on him again. Mom and Dad were in it too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but imagine if they put me in Slytherin. That's the house you know who was in. Yes, said Ron. He flapped back into his seat, looking depressed. You know, I think the end of Scabbers were a bit slighter, said Harry, trying to take Ron's mind off houses. So, what do your oldest brothers do now? They've left anyway. Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he'd finished school. Charlie's in Romania studying dragons, and Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts. And said Ron, do you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet. I don't suppose you get that with the Muggles. Someone tried to rob a high security vault. Harry stared. Really, nothing. What happened to them? Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They haven't been caught. My dad says it must have been a very powerful dark wizard to get around Gringotts, but they don't think they took anything. That's odd. Of course, everything gets scared when something like this happens in a case. You'll know who's behind it. Harry turned this news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear. Every time you know who was mentioned, he was supposed to. This was all a part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. I don't know any, Harry confessed. What? Ron looked befonded. Oh, wait. It's the best game in the world. And he was off explaining about the four balls and the positions of the seven players, describing famous games he'd been to, Wish with the brothers, and the broomstick he'd like to get if he had the money. He was just he would he was just taking Harry through the finger points of the game when the compartment door slid open yet again, but it was Neville, the total sport, or Hermione Granger. Three boys entered, and Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. He was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. Is it true? They're saying all down the train. Harry Potter's in the compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He had been looking at the other boys. Both of them were thickest and looked extremely mean. Standing either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Crabbe and Goyle, said the pale boy, carelessly noticing when Harry was looking. And my name's Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, with might have been hiding a singer. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out Wizarding's families are much better than ours, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thank he said cruelly. Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink ting appeared in his pale cheeks. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter, he said closely. Unless you're a bit politier, you'll go to the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. You'll hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys and what that Hagrid, it'll rub off on you both. Harry and Ron stood up. Say that again, Ron said, his face as red as his hair. Oh, you're going to fight us, are you? Malfoy sneered. Unless you get out now, and said Harry more bravely than he felt before, because Crabbe and Goyle were a lot bigger than him or Ron. But we don't feel like leaving, do we, boys? We've eaten all our food, and you still seem to have some. Goyle reached toward the chocolate frogs next to Ron. Ron leaped forward before he had so much touched grabbing Goyle let out a horrible yell. Scabbers, the rat, was hanging off his finger sharp little teeth sunk deep into Goyle's knuckle. Crabbe and Goyle Malfoy and backed away as Goyle swung Scabbers round and round, howling. When Scabbers finally flew off and hit the window, all three of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more rats lurking among the sweets, or perhaps they heard footsteps, because a second later, Hermione had come in. What has been going on, said, looking at the sweets all over the floor. Ron picked it up, Scabbers by his tail. I think he's been knocked out, Ron said to Harry. He looked closer at Scabbers. No, I don't believe it. He's gone back to sleep. And so he had. You've met Malfoy before? Harry explained about their meeting in Diagon Alley. I've heard a lot of his family, Ron said darkly. They were some of the first to come back to our side after you know who disappeared, said they've been bewitched. My dad doesn't believe it. He says Malfoy's father didn't need an excuse to go over to the dark side. He turned to Hermione. Can we help you with something? You'd better hurry up and put your robes on. I've just been to the front to ask the conductor. He says he'll be nearly there. You haven't been fighting, have you? You'll be in trouble before you even get here. Scabbers have been fighting, not us, said Ron, scowling at her. Would you mind leaving while we change? All right. I'll only come in here because people outside are behaving very childishly, racing up and down the corridors, said Hermione in a sniffing noise. And you've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know? Just there. Ron glared at her as she left. Harry peered out of the window. It was getting dark. He could see mountains and forests under a deep purple sky. The train didn't seem to be slowing down. He and Harry took off their jackets and pulled on their long black robes. Ron's were a bit short for him, and you could see his sneakers underneath them. A voice echoed through the train. We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school separately. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thundering the corridor. The train slowed right down and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the door and out onto a tiny dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bobbling over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. First years, over here. All right there, Harry. Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Come on, follow me. Any more first years? Mind if your step now? First years, follow me. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, now narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them. Then Harry thought there was must be thick trees there. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toes, sniffled once or twice. You'll get your first year's sight of Hogwarts, since Hagrid called out over his shoulder. Just around this bend here. There was a loud ooh. The narrow path had opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black pail perched on top a high mountain on the other side. Its windows sparkling in the starry sky was as vast, with many turrets and towers. No more foreign boats. Hagrid pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the store. Harry and Ron were followed to their boat by Neville and Hermione. Everyone in, shouted Hagrid, who had a bow to himself. Right then, forward, and the fleet little boats moved off at all once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up the gray castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads down, yelled Hagrid, as the first boats reached the cliff. They all bent with their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivy that hid a wide open in the cliff face. They were carried along of a dark tunnel, which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle until they reached a kind underground harbor where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. Oh, you're there. Is this your turn? Said Hagrid, who was checking the boats as people climbed out of them. Trevor! Cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hands. They were clambered up a passageway in the rock after Hagrid's lamp coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight on stone steps, crowded around the huge oak front door. Everyone here, you still there? Got your toad? Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked there 3 times on the castle door.